questions you have answered. So on that note, I am so excited today to introduce Jodi Polanski, Executive Director and founder of Lost Our Home Pet Rescue in Tempe, Arizona. Jodi, we are so very excited to hear from you today, and I don't want to take any more time. Please go ahead and take it away.
Great, thank you. I'm so happy to be here and share this information. It's something I'm so passionate about. If I start talking fast, I'll try to catch myself and slow down, but that happens sometimes when you're passionate about the things you're talking about. So today we're talking about collaborative approaches between domestic violence shelters and pet shelters. And more specifically, oops, I gotta go here. Hold on here. There we go. More specifically, today you're going to learn two perspectives: the best practices of a DV shelter to start a pet program, and best practices for a pet shelter to start a pet program. Best practices for a pet shelter to start a pet program at a DV shelter. So for those who don't know what DV means domestic violence shelter. I'm going to say DV a lot throughout the webinar. I think probably most of you know that, but there may be a few animal welfare agencies that don't know that. So, okay, so we're going to learn best practices for a domestic violence shelter to start a pet program and best practices for a pet shelter to start a pet program at a DV shelter. You're going to learn crucial pitfalls to avoid. And then we're going to take a look to the partnership that I have between Sojourn Center and A New Leaf. They're both domestic violence shelters. And you get to, from there, be able to see some ideas on how you can have a pet program that works successfully. And then you're going to, pet shelters will also learn additional ways that they can help DV survivors. And then lastly, going to leave today with some actionable takeaways is actually start a program both as a DV shelter and as a pet rescue. So mission and brief history, just so you have some context where I'm coming from. Lost Our Home was founded in 2008 by myself. It was founded due to the foreclosure crisis. And so Lost Our Home is really more than a pet shelter. We are all about helping people and pets. We know that we help people because we recognize that what impacts people directly impacts our pets. So programs we have are meant to help both people and pets in crisis. We initially started as an all-volunteer foster-based rescue. And I mention that because for those animal welfare agencies that are on here right now, if you don't have an employee or a shelter and you think you can't do this, I'm telling you right now, you can. It's been done without a shelter, without even an employee. So as you're listening to things, know you can do this whether you have employees or a shelter or not. In the last 16 years, we have helped over 34,000 pets and over 20,000 people. So here's an overview of our programs. We have five main programs. Our Temper Care program helps people who find themselves in crisis situations and the pets who have often no place to go during those circumstances. So we'll care for the pets for 90 days, sometimes up to 120 days. We provide all the medical care during that time period. We specialize with domestic violence and homelessness and also do a lot with hospitalization. Over all the years, we provided about 135,000 nights of safe care for pets. So we've done a lot of this. We have partnerships with domestic violence shelters, which is what we're talking about today. Most of what today is about, actually all of it really is that. In those programs, we've cared for over 500 pets, our partners have. We have a rescue and adoption program, which when you think of a pet shelter, this is what you think of, is that program is meant for helping homeless pets. And we've done that. We've helped over 10,000 homeless pets find loving new families. We have a Tempe first responder program, and this provides 24/7 access to our shelter for first responders that are on duty when the situation that involves a pet that needs a safe place to go. As a lot of you may know, is that the middle of the night is when things tend to happen, and if there's no place to bring a pet to, it becomes an issue for the pet. So this way, there's a safe place for our first responders to take them to, and they get back out helping people again. And we get a pet food bank, which we distributed over 1 million meals. That's a really obviously a popular program, especially now when the economy's made pet food so expensive. So, okay, so the problem. The problem is that pets are typically a barrier for survivors seeking safety. Nearly 50% of domestic violence survivors delay leaving their abusers because they're concerned about their pet, which obviously keeps them and their pets in dangerous situations. It's really no wonder, though, because as you can see, 71% of women seeking shelter report their partners threatened, hurt, or killed their animals. So it makes it difficult to want to leave your pet behind when you're in this kind of situation. But here's where the challenge comes, is that There's a lack of access to shelter and housing that allows pets. So if you look here, less than 20% of domestic violence shelters can accommodate pets. Many families and friends can't have pets or additional pets. For example, they have a landlord that does not allow pets, or they already have pets and their pets don't get along with other pets, or can't have more pets in their house. And then, of course, pet-friendly rentals are really hard to find and they're very costly. So if you're trying to leave and you don't want to leave your pet, then you have the challenge of leaving and the challenge trying to find a place to bring your pets. This is why we're here today, because the solution is helping by finding housing for the pets too. And that's what we do really well at Lost Our Home Pet Rescue. We have 2 programs that do that. Our Tempe Care program, as I mentioned earlier, that's where you're staying with a family or friend or shelter that doesn't allow pets. And we do a lot of collaboration with many domestic violence shelters through that program. So it's a way that we can collaborate with DV shelters to help out the people and the pets, or help out the people that are staying there by taking their pets and caring for them. And then we have the partnership with 2 domestic violence shelters. We worked with one of them to actually build a pet shelter and operate a pet program on their campus. And the other one, we built their pet program and helped them support the pet we help support the pet program too. It's a lot of P's. I think pet program. And so Sojourner, we started in 2015. It's been 9 years. It's hard to believe it's been 9 years we've been doing this with them, but it has been. It's gone by fast. And A New Leaf is our newest partner, and we've been working with them since 2022. So we're going to start by talking about best practices for DV shelters to start a pet program. The first thing I'm going to say is most important is partner with an animal welfare agency that can provide comprehensive support. There's so much about it that having the expert with the pets is going to make a big difference for you, and having those resources is going to make a big difference for you. I have a quote here that I wrote down that was from Kimberly Hubbard. She's the Associate Director of DV Shelters from A New Leaf Domestic Violence Shelter. And this was written on a reference letter she did for us, and says their support and knowledge have been invaluable in ways we never expected or knew we needed. And the reason why I like this is because it's the kind of thing where you don't know what you don't know. And this is the reason why working with people who have the expertise or have done this before is going to make a big difference for you when you're starting your own program, because you don't know what you don't know, which means you don't even know what questions to ask. So your partner is going to be really important for you. Okay. Let's see here. So best practices. The first thing to do is have an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding, and which is with a pet shelter, because you want to define each person's responsibilities or each organization's responsibilities. That way there's no problems down the road. Everybody knows what they're doing and they know what the expectations are for each company. Develop funding strategies that prevent conflict with other programs and leverage the PR opportunities to enhance visibility and funding. And the reason why I say that is because you are going to have pushback from at a DV shelter. You're going to have pushback from employees. They're going to wonder why you're putting money into funding pets when you don't have money to fund kid programs, for example. And so it's going to happen. Not everybody understands the benefit of having pets, and they don't feel like if there's a lack of funding, we should spend more funding on something like pets. So what you're going to want to do is realize that when it comes to funding this kind of program, there's funding out there when it comes to domestic violence and pets. You don't have to use your general funding to fund this program. So by using funding strategies that are only about using money that is meant just for pets, you can't use it for kids, it's just for pets. It helps prevent any kind of conflict with other programs. The other thing too is that not only will having a pet program not take away funds from general funding, it's actually going to help you, because once people know about it and you're going to use this for PR opportunities, people love when a domestic violence shelter is helping pets too. So you're going to have a lot more people wanting to hear about you and to support you and fund you. So you will get additional funding to your general funds by having a pet shelter. So super important, make sure you take advantage of the PR opportunities. People know that you're doing this. You can get additional funding for all your programs. So the way you do this also with your staff is you're going to ensure buy-in from them during the planning stage. What you can do, which is what Sojourner did, which was really great, was they held a town hall style meetings. They share the plans to the employees, discuss the impact on the employees, and highlight the benefits of having a pet program. So one thing that people don't always understand is that the pet program is not only about helping the pets, it's also about helping the people. Pets will help the people feel more comfortable at the shelter. It's going to help them with their healing. It will relieve any guilty feelings they had if the pet had to be left behind in dangerous situations, and so much more. So this is, having pets is as much about helping the people as it is about helping the pets. Okay, take a breath. So borrow existing forms and manuals and resources from other agencies. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. If somebody's doing it already and they're doing it successfully, then use what they have to get your program started. Set up policies and procedures before taking in pets, because something happens and you don't have a policy or procedure for it, it becomes an issue, where if there's a policy or procedure set up ahead of time, it's not an issue, you know what to do. Ensure the policies do include safety protocols. For example, the 10-foot rule is something that we do, and that is where any pet should stay 10 feet away, or dog, I should say, 10 feet away from any other animal or person. And the reason why is they should be on a leash, and if something happens where the dog has a reaction to somebody or another pet, it gives the pet parent time to be able to hold the leash a little tighter and keep the pet away from whatever it is they're reacting to prevent an accident. So the 10-foot rule is a really easy way to remember safety that you can talk to people about. Just one of those few things you want to put in your protocols as far as for safety. On that same note, have a bite policy. What do you do if there is a bite? And so it's not the end of the world, it happens, but just know what to do if there is one. Document pet information, including medical receipt. Keep copies of the signed disclosures and those records even after the pet leaves. They may come back to you and ask for more for those pet records and information. So the way you keep everything else, keep all the pet information too. Train staff in handling both dogs and cats, and a special focus on your overnight staff. And the reason why is because if there's an emergency or a late night intake, typically that the overnight staff is a lot smaller than it is during the daytime. So those people have to really know what they're doing, because they can't go to somebody else and ask for more help. It's them, right? So make sure you're really focusing some good training on the people who are in your overnight staff. Don't forget about them. Have medical policies in place regarding what's required. Usually shelters are requiring vaccinations and spay and neuter. Spay and neuter is it's good for many reasons. It will help with behavior, which will be helpful for you having a pet live on the campus, including marking. It's healthier for the pets. And also a lot of the funding that comes from the pet-centric agencies are going to require the pets to be spayed and neutered. So if you decide to require or not, it's up to you, but just giving some information as to why you may want to consider requiring it. The other thing too is that if they are unstable in their housing, it's going to be hard to find a place to get with, 1 or 2 pets, but they have like 6 more because they have a litter of pets. It's going to be really difficult. So it's for everybody's best interest for them to be spayed and neutered, whether you make it a policy or not. It's also really important to state who's responsible for the cost of the medical for the pets, the shelter or the pet parent. Usually for required medical, like vaccines or spay neuter, the shelter will pay for that. Additional medical, the pet is sick or injured. I've seen it both ways. So make sure you decide, what to do if it's a shelter paying for additional medical or the pet parent, and how does that work at the same time. So have procedures in place for medical emergencies. When there's a medical emergency, it's usually life-threatening, and you're going to want your staff members to know what to do. So make sure those procedures are put in place ahead of time before you bring any pets in. And then the other thing too is plan for a 7-day window to care for pets. So if the pet parent exits unexpectedly, which does happen, as you know, at shelters, they can't always take the pet with them immediately. So give them 7 days to find a place for the pet to go, and make sure your staff or somebody is able to care for those pets in that time period. So another thing to have in mind. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and we're going to move into best practices for pet shelters supporting a DV program. So this is for you pet shelters, but it's also for the domestic violence shelters to listen to too. And the reason why is because this will help you know what kind of support you can get from pet shelters and what you should expect from pet shelters. So make sure as a pet shelter, you're assigning a dedicated team to manage this program. You need somebody for intake, medical, behavior, and an overall coordinator. It sounds like a lot, but I'm telling you, when you have different people involved in it, it makes it a lot less than any one person. So it's easier for everybody. I know the pet shelters and DV shelters right now are carrying like a really heavy load, and like any more is something that people don't want to take on. But there's so much benefit in these kind of programs. And when you're dividing up between different people, it makes it so much easier, and it's just so worth it to do it. Intake may not even be used, but every few months or so, if there's a pet that needs to get surrendered, Medical would be used if if you have a clinic at your shelter and they're going to come, they'd just be assigned as any other appointment at your shelter or for helping answer questions for them. Behavior, that will be used more often because you may do behavior intake evals for them and helping them out with pets that have some issues and some training. And then the overall coordinator is sort of like their contacts for everything. If they need a donation or a supply, don't know who to talk to, don't know what to do, the coordinator will probably have the most involvement with the domestic violence shelter. Your pet shelter staff should tour the domestic violence shelter, and the domestic violence shelter staff should tour the pet shelter. This is really, really important. You need to understand the inner workings of each organization because it's going to promote respect for processes and staff. When respecting each other's processes, you understand the reasons why things are the way they are. So it's really helpful when you look at what needs to happen from a pet perspective and a DV shelter perspective. You can merge the processes to work for both, because there's going to be some things that seem like as a pet shelter, you need to have happen, but as a DV shelter, it can't happen. And it could be a point of contention. So if you understand each other's programs really well and you respect it, it's an easier way to be able to come together to make the best benefit for your participants and their pets. I will say that when I first toured Children's Center, I was blown away by the things that this DV shelter is doing. I had no idea it was involved as it was. The things that they did, I didn't even think about. It was everything about it just completely blew me away. And I had so much respect for them after seeing this, so much more than I had from before. And I had a lot from before. And I'll say the same thing happened when they came to visit our shelter. They were blown away too. They had no idea that helping animals could be so involved and there's so many moving parts to it. So it was really eye-opening for both of us. And it's something that every employee I've brought to the DV shelter has really enjoyed, and they come back just a whole new enlightenment over it, and vice versa. So something you're definitely going to want to do. Okay. Implement policies to support the DV shelter with abandoned animals. You're going to have them. Sometimes people will leave their animal behind because they have no place to bring the pet to, or they exit the shelter without a plan. There's just different reasons why you have abandoned pets there. So just plan for taking those abandoned pets in if that happens to the shelter, or if a pet needs to come to the shelter because of behavior, for example, make sure you had a way to be able to take the pets in for that reason too. Okay, set up safety procedures for the DV shelter and provide them with the pet handling training. This is going to prevent injuries, as you can imagine, and the shelter will be more independent. The more independent they are, the less they're calling you for help. So the more you can train them and help them up front, the better it'll be for everybody. So put the time into doing that. And then set them up with resources for discounted pet medical care. And this is where we shine, right? We get medical care discounts for pets. And the domestic violence shelters, they don't. So make sure you get them set up with your contacts, and that way they can get the discounts too, because the more they can save, the more pets and people they can help. The same as any other nonprofit. And then have other resources available. Plan on having, just kind of boarding, other pet programs, because there's no way that any, pet shelter can 100% do everything for a domestic violence shelter. There are times that you just can't help them out. So having other referrals and agencies and things they could do to get that help is going to be really important. So make sure that's set up ahead of time. And that way, you know what to do if there's something comes to you that you can't do. Okay, let's go to pitfalls. There's a lot of pitfalls in this too. That was best practices. Now it's pitfalls. Okay. Jumping in without researching different approaches is not a great thing to do. There's so many different ways you can allow pets to be on the campus of a domestic violence shelter. Pets can stay in the shelter. They can stay in rooms. Are pets allowed to stay in rooms unattended? Do you allow babysitting of other residents to babysit, or do you not? There's liabilities both ways. So there's all kinds of things that you need to think about before you start taking pets on your campus. So make sure you're looking at these different approaches as you're trying to decide what to do. Another pitfall is jumping in without talking to other DV shelters and reading their documents. Reading SOPs, standard operating procedures, and waivers is going to give you a lot of insight into what operations are like, and it's going to help you ask those right questions. So up front, just try to read different forms and policies and procedures, because it will give you a really good insight. And then another pitfall is jumping in, kind of jumping all in. You need to start small and then test and then modify before taking too many pets in. If you take in 10 pets and there's an issue, you got to fix it on all 10 pets versus fixing it on 1 or 2. So kind of goes out saying, don't jump in with everything all at one time. Take it slow. So more pitfalls to avoid: not designating convenient space for potty breaks. Otherwise, dogs are peeing wherever they pee. It could be adding smells around the campus where you don't want them to be. If you think about it, it's the middle of the night and somebody needs to take the dog out for a potty break. Are they going to walk across an entire large campus to go to a dog park that's all the way around for a dog to take a quick potty break? So make sure the potty break places are convenient for everybody. That will save you a lot of trouble down the road. Another pitfall to avoid is not setting clear policies regarding abandonment, and also regarding what required medical is needed. Also not clearly explaining to the pet parent, like what to expect, these rules, what constitutes abandonment, how that works. Pet ownership is a legal issue. So if the pet parent does not understand these things and your policies are not very clear about this, it can become a legal issue down the road. So be sure that you are setting clear policies and talking clearly, explaining clearly to the pet parent about abandonment specifically, and definitely medical too, and what and who pays for what and what's required. Okay, not having a pet parent sign a waiver. That's the kind of thing where it's emergency, you take them in, they don't sign anything, and then something happens and you wish they signed something. So just at intake, when they're signing your waivers, have them sign the pet waivers too. It's the easiest thing to do. And that way you're legally covered for anything at all. So the other thing too is not being respectful to your partner's operations and not being open to learning what's needed. That's a really big no-no. You've got to, as I mentioned before, you got to be respectful of your partner's operations and learn about it so you can understand more, because if you do that, then you can best work together. Okay, how's my timing going?
You are doing great, Jodi. We're still a few minutes away from the half hour.
Okay, great. Is there any questions anybody has that want me to take right now before I move on?
Yeah, if anybody would like to ask any questions aloud, you're more than welcome. We also have a couple questions in the chat that I am excited to read to you, but I'll just give 1 moment in case anybody would like to ask a question live. All right. So a really wonderful question from Eliana. She says that she is so impressed and inspired by Lost Our Home's accomplishments. She is in New Mexico, and while they are able to help DV survivors, they don't have a lot, if any, resources for people with pets experiencing homelessness or hospitalization. She's wondering if you have any recommendations, specifically any recommendations around funding.
Yes. So when we do funding for our temporary care program, that is done we just do it for general, for everything, whether it be domestic violence. We apply for domestic violence, homelessness, hospitalization as one thing. There are some programs that only support domestic violence, but you'd be surprised at how many funders love that kind of program. Helping people is, it's a great way to keep pets from going into shelters. So right now, those kind of programs are really important when everybody's overfull, and funders know that. So just I don't know if you've applied or not for just general funding for your temporary care program or whatever you call it, your foster care program. We tend to get funding more for that program than any other program we apply for. And we don't specify if it's for hospitalization or homelessness. We only specify domestic violence if that's only what they want to fund, but that's smaller than the ones that just want to fund the program. So go out there, look for them. If you're looking to apply for a program that does adoptions or temporary care, the temporary care program would be a way to make you stand out more and more likely to get the funding than maybe applying for the one for adoptable pets. Not always, but it's something to consider. Look to see what they're looking for. And if you can apply for temporary care, do that, because it'll help you stand out. So yes, hopefully that's helpful.
Thanks, Jodi. I also want to add that at this moment in time, Red Rover does have grants available specifically for animal shelters that are supporting a domestic violence program. However, we are very, very hopeful. Our fingers are crossed that we will be able to provide funding for homeless shelters and organizations that support homeless shelters in the future. We did run a pilot grant program this spring where we did open some homeless shelter grants, and it was very successful. So right now we're just in the process of trying to find stable funding that can allow us to make that a more permanent grant rather than just a one-time thing. So please keep an eye on our website for updates, but we're very, very hopeful because we know it's an area of significant need. Question from Tawny. We always want to ensure that we're sharing best practices information with our partners. However, I often get the question regarding how those best practices were determined. So my question is how the best practices were determined or where they come from.
So those were determined to come from doing it. We've been involved for 9 years working at a domestic violence shelter, helping domestic violence victims, and our temporary care program where we help domestic violence victims we've been doing for 16 years. So, I've gone through all this years of experience of doing this and, talking to our partners, what's important to them, what do they think is, what is really important and what works best. And so the combination of experiences from our partners and from our organization is what we've used to determine the best practices.
That's great. Thanks so much, Jodi. Another question from Ashley, and I shared a little bit about sort of Red Rover and Don't Forget the Pets view on this, but I would love to get yours as well, Jodi. So question from Ashley, our director is contemplating making the pet care all on the responsibility of the owners and not hiring any pet professionals. As a former kennel tech, this really worries me. Do you have any insight on this? Animals will be kept in kennel areas and not in client rooms. So Ashley, at Red Rover, we're definitely big supporters of empowering pet owners to provide care for their pets. We really do believe that they are the expert in their pets, and allowing them to continue to provide care is a great way to sort of kind of keep up that normalcy and that routine that they're used to and that their pet is used to. That said, it doesn't always work out that way. And sometimes pet parents aren't able to meet the level of care that you want. And so having some professionals on site that can step in to support with that pet care if they're not able to meet your expectations is certainly a good idea. And also a kennel style model, we find it can be a little bit more challenging when it comes to providing daily pet care for pet parents rather than that in-room model, because sometimes there is that sort of out of sight, out of mind mentality. And when you're in a kennel model, they may have access to a lot of different clients' pets, not just their own pets. And so making sure that they're being safe in that space can also be a challenge. So definitely not a bad idea to have some additional support, but I would love to hear from Jodi, because really this is right in your wheelhouse of expertise. I know your team was providing pet care for your DV shelter for a while before they kind of took on that responsibility themselves. So I'd love to hear your insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Danielle. You said it very, very good. We were there every day taking care of the pets, and I think it was helpful in some ways, but so didn't realize that the best thing for the pets is to have the pet parent caring for the pet. And that's the reason why they literally changed their entire program, which you're going to see later, where the pets stay in the pets inside the rooms with the pet parents. Doesn't mean they can't stay in a pet shelter type environment like you're saying, but the idea is that the pet's parent should be caring for the pets. It was the best thing for them. Even right now we have the cats are still staying in the pet shelter, not in the rooms, but the pet parents are responsible for caring for those pets. I will say we do have, there's one employee there, a Sojourner employee that's available to help out and step in if the pet parent can't. So it is good to have that, but it's not the main responsibility of this person. So exactly what Daniel said, it's not a no-go if they, having the pet parent take care of the pets is the best way to do it. Having backup is great to have if you can. Even if you can't have a designated pet person, you can have different staff that want to be able to jump in and help out too. Just make sure everybody's trained. If you have a pet shelter environment without somebody overseeing it, this is where the training for your employees and for your participants is really important. These protocols and policies, they have to know that they can't take care of other people's pets, for example. They're going to have access to them, but they can't take care of them. Maybe they can, So I would definitely recommend that you get some very clear policies around who's doing what and what's allowed, and maybe have some staff that have other responsibilities be able to be trained to jump in and help out as needed. And that could be your backup if she's not willing to actually pay to have a person there just for animal care. And coming from your background of being kennel tech, you understand how it is, and I totally respect that. See it every day, but just trust both of us in that the pet parent really is the expert on their own pet, and they should be the one taking care of them. It's even for other reasons, as far as it helps in their healing, being around the animal and having something to care for. There's so many reasons why, which is why Sojourner changed their whole way they're working things.
Thanks so much, Jodi. And I just wanted to read out, not a question, but a comment from Ruthie. She said, I know at our shelter's kennel, we leave most of the care up to the clients, but it's my job as the kennel advocate to make sure the really important stuff gets done, that they have the supplies they need, that things are cleaned properly, etc. That's awesome, Ruthie. Thank you so much for adding that. And then from Lisa B, as a former deputy dog warden and vet assistant, I would be worried about keeping the kennels properly disinfected and the situation where the client can't be there to let the pet outside or feed it, etc. Yeah, anything else you would like to add, Jodi, in response to Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, that's all very valid. And that's the reason why you need to have some kind of employee that's been trained. The training is more than just handling. The training is making sure that the kennels are properly disinfected, because it's so easy to spread disease to disease. That's the reason why vaccines should be required. So yes, everything that we just heard is very valid and very important. And that's why having somebody, if it's not somebody designated, but somebody who understands what to do and there's clear policies on what to do, is going to make a big difference for you, because you do have to keep them clear, everything sanitized. Somebody does need to order supplies. I mean, you can't be without anybody overseeing the pet program at all. People have to oversee it, whether it's one person that does everything or a mixture of people that have other jobs that do different parts of it. However it works, it's up to the organization, but those are very valid concerns that somebody does have to take care of.
Thanks so much, Jodi. I would also add, just as a very last note, Lisa, I also come from the animal sheltering world, about a decade in a high volume animal shelter. And what I always try to remember is that the population of pets often that folks are dealing with in a DV shelter situation is quite a bit different than what we would see in an animal shelter. Typically, these pets are coming from home environments. We don't have a lot of stray pets coming into a DV shelter. Often they do have some veterinary history, not always, but often they have received vaccines before. And it's just a much lower number of animals that are coming through with known histories. And so some of the things that I definitely share your concerns about, disease transmission and making sure that we're following proper cleaning and sanitizing protocols, are certainly still important, but maybe not to the same degree that we would need to worry about it in a high volume animal shelter with animals with unknown medical histories. And then just a final note from Ashley, who asked that original question. Thank you guys. It definitely helped me feel better about having clients be more involved in the program.
Great, glad to hear that. So, and that's also actually a really good point, Danielle, regarding that the amount of pets coming in is a whole different level, and the kind of pets that come in is very different too. And that was something that was a learning thing for us too, because we had expectations of things being the same as we're used to. But where we're taking care of 130 pets, they're taking care of 10. So it's a much smaller amount of volume, and these pets do have some medical that comes in. If they don't, it's still a smaller volume and the people are taking care of them. So, but what we do at Sojourners, we have a lot of signs up on the kennels that, steps to do for cleaning and things like that. And that way it reminds them what needs to happen. There's even checklists to make sure they check that they did these things too. So having signs up on the kennels and checklists for the pet parents to remind them what needs to have done, reminds them what has to be done, is very helpful too. So, okay, we ready to move on? Okay, so now we're going to talk about how the partnership worked And the reason why this is important to know is because you can see ways a pet shelter can support a domestic violence shelter, which helps both parties. So you know what kind of help you can get, you know what kind of help you can give. This is how we worked, and this is what worked best for us. These are just the highlights of it. In 2015, with Sojourner, what we did is we helped design and develop a pet shelter and a pet program along with them, you know, in combination with them, we did everything. And the pets stayed at the shelter at the time, and then ESA animals, which are emotional support animals, stayed in the rooms with the families. We handled as a shelter, pet shelter, we handled day-to-day operations. We did pet care and enrichment 7 days a week. We discussed pet parent concerns, a medical history, a history of abuse and neglect, if there was any. We did the orientation for them. We were there if they had any kind of questions, because we were there full time 7 days a week. So we were the place they went to. The pet shelter kind of became like the Zen place of the pet of the domestic violence shelter. It's a place to go and relax and see your pets and take some downtime. So we did medical and behavior evaluations at intake, and also we were transporting pets for medical treatments if it was needed. So we did a lot of different things there. But on the same note, we talked about there was program changes done in 2022. It changed with dogs stay in the rooms, the families. The cats still stay in the pet shelter. They don't want them in the rooms, they're afraid they're going to run out and get lost. The pet shelter was then made into a daycare, and that's been really helpful having that there. Not that you have to have one, but it's been helpful. They had a pet shelter there already. And then Sojourner took over the daily operations because now the pet parents are taking care of the pets themselves. They didn't need to have somebody there all the time, you know, taking care of the pets and doing everything. So we support them in so many other ways. At the same time, we started a partnership with A New Leaf, and we helped them build a pet program on their campus. What we did is we used Sojourner's newest programs as guidelines for that one, and then we customized it for their campus. And the reason why I mention this is because, you know, I've built a pet program before, so I know how to do it, but using existing programs, policies, and documents as a guideline made so much sense. It was faster, and I already knew it was successful, so why would I not do that? So I'm going to urge you to do the same. If you're starting a program, please use other companies, you know, policies and procedures and programs, because you know they work already, and it saves you a lot of time trying to, you know, not reinvent the wheel. By the way, the domestic violence shelters, they cover the cost for these programs. We had hired in the beginning, we had hired employees to work there, and those employees were covered by Sojourn Center. But any work that we did at our shelter, they weren't charged for, which was what we were able to do for them. But the, you know, the medical was, you know, paid for by them. The maintenance of the shelter, all those things was paid for by the domestic violence shelter. Okay, so more things on how the partnership worked. Lost our home, what we do now with a new way that we're working, and this is with A New Leaf too, with we did before too, but the way we support them now is by sharing all our resources and network connections. The more we can give them of other resources and connections, the more likely they are to be able to get the help that they need without having to call you. So you can't do it all. You cannot do it all as a pet shelter. You have to be able to have other resources and connections you can give to them, so that as a community, you work together to help these pets and these pet parents. So don't be greedy and share everything you have with them. Provide partner discounts at vet clinics. So we get discounts. We're getting ready to, well, we just opened up our own clinic in our shelter. So pretty soon we'll be able to actually do their pets too, and give them even better prices. It's so important to help these domestic violence shelters save money. So make sure you're getting them discounts at the vet clinics that you get discounts at. Or if you do medical at your own clinic and house, make sure you do it for them at a very, very low cost. At your cost would be great, because once again, you want them to be able to be successful and helping as many pets as you can. So the more you can save them in cost, the better it will be for them. So as a good partner, you want to be able to, anything that you pay for, to pass it on at cost. Do not try to make any money off of it. It's not the way to do things, you know. Everything should be to how you save these domestic violence shelters the most amount of money. We provide access to our behaviorist, and that is for doing medical evaluations still. Doing behavior evaluations for training staff, and also specialized support. Like if there's a pet that has a behavior issue, our behaviorists can help out with that too. They use our online CRM program for managing pet information. They both do. It's free for them to use. It's meant for pet programs, so it's so much better than trying to use Excel spreadsheets or Google Documents. This is meant for what they're doing. So if you have a way you can provide them your CRM to manage their pet information, then please give them that to use too. We purchase pet supplies, including medical supplies, at discounted rates. As I mentioned, pass the savings on at our cost for them as a way we can try to help them out. We donate in-kind donations to them as needed. So if they need something and we have it donated to us, we donate it back to them too. And then we offer training to their staff, processes, and on pet handling, which we do more of on pet handling. And then we serve as a resource for their ongoing needs, challenges, things that come up. They can call us, they can ask us questions. That's where the coordinator comes into play. If they have a situation they're unsure what to do with, you're able to, help them out and be there for them for that. And then also very important that with both organizations, we have quarterly meetings to evaluate the program and for quality assurance. We want to see like what's happening, what's working, what's not working, where are your pain points, because all those things help us continue to keep on evolving and making the program better and better. We talked about best practices. It's these kind of things that we do to help us realize what we need to do to make things, to get the best practices. Okay, take a breath. So now I'm going to change gears, and this is going to be about the temporary care program. This is looking for pet shelters. And these are ways that a pet shelter can support domestic violence survivors and their pets for when they're not going to go to a shelter that allows pets, or they're going to go to family or friend's house. So this is separate from a DV program. Although DV shelters that don't help pets will be able to work with you, and you're going to provide them this kind of help by caring for their pets. So you're still helping domestic violence shelters, just in a different capacity with this. It's really important for the temporary care program that you assign dedicated staff to manage a program. It's very important to do that. This person has to have strong communication skills for situations that are crises, and also working with mental health challenges. It happens, and so you need to make sure somebody is aware of how to take care of people in these kind of bad crisis situations, because it's a different level of panic and a different level of most everything. I could say, just if you have somebody who's in a crisis like that, their whole world's been taken apart from them. And so if they are not good with keeping calm and knowing what to say and what to do, then they're not going to be successful in this program as a coordinator for the program. Trauma-informed training, if they could do that, it's going to be really helpful for them too. And then also there's a high compassion fatigue component to this position. So make sure you have somebody with proper skills to manage that. The shelter should know that and proactively address it. As a pet shelter, we're used to dealing with pets in crisis, but when you add people in crisis on top of that, it's a whole new level of compassion fatigue. People are a lot of crying and not understanding things and trying to help them out, and they don't understand that you're trying to help them or how you're trying to help them, and it's you have a lot of people coming to you for help, but you can't help. So it's just a different level. You have people coming at you from two different ways, from people needing help and from pets needing help. So knowing it's a high compassion fatigue type of program, make sure you're addressing that. And then staff need to maintain a non-judgmental attitude, focusing on the bond between the pet and parent. As a pet shelter, we always think about pets need to have the best pet parent. And if a person is not in a stable living environment, for example, then they're not the best pet parent. And so what I've seen people do is they're taking care of pets for somebody in crisis, but they all, they feel like I can get a better pet parent for this pet. This pet needs to go someplace else instead. And that's the wrong thing to do. I mean, the whole idea of this program is to help this person through crisis, right? So let's help them through crisis and get them to be a good spot to be able to take the pet back. These pet and pet parent are bonded. They want to be together. They love each other. So your part as a shelter is to care for this pet and do what you can to help this pet parent be in a better position to care for this pet. It's not about trying to take this pet away from the person and give them to a better pet parent. So that's something that I've seen a lot of animal welfare organizations kind of struggle with, because it's a different kind of concept that we're used to, is trying to find the best homes for these homeless pets. These pets have houses. Have families already. Okay, have written prioritizations for intake on temporary care versus adoptable. So do you have kennels for temporary care versus kennels for adoptable, fosters for temporary care versus fosters for adoptable? You may have, 10 pets trying to come in from temporary care and 10 trying to come in from adoptable. And how do you decide which ones are going to come in? So having policies put in place ahead of time for prioritization for those intakes will be really important. So there's not going to be problems down the road over what to do and when we should be taking pets in or not taking pets in. Okay, so also have written prioritizations for temporary care intake, because you will, like I said, you will have a lot more applications coming in. than you can take in. Right now, about 75% of the applications that come in, we cannot help because the amount of volume is just so high in need compared to what you could do. And we have one of the largest temporary care programs in the country, and we still have that many people we have to turn away because there's not enough capacity to help everybody. So what we do is, for us, is we look to see if there's a pet and a person in danger, they're a top priority. And there's a lot of that happening, even in that they're both in danger. So then what do you do, right? So then we look at if they're domestic violence and they're homeless, unsheltered, they get top priority. The domestic violence and shelter, they get second, and domestic violence with a family or friend, they get third. You can do it however you want to do it, but just my point is have some kind of prioritization, because you're going to have these come up. You need to know what to do for intake. It's not going to be having these prioritizations will help the person know. It helps take some of the guilt off of them and not taking somebody else in. It's helpful for so many ways. So definitely figure out what you want your prioritization to be for intake, because there will be way more than you can do. Really, 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 really important, can't say this enough, really important is a confidentiality procedure. This is a safety issue. You're working with people who could be running for their lives, and people are trying to find them and hurt their pets. So as a pet shelter, we're used to trying to post all the pets online and see how cute they are and as much publicity as they can get. It's the opposite with a temporary care program. Your staff, your volunteers, your fosters have to be trained that these pets cannot be seen by the public. The public can't know what pet is there. They can't post pics on social media. Our temporary care fosters are separate than our fosters that are there for our adoptable pets, because we want them to be trained that they cannot post pics on social media or talk about these pets. In the shelter, the pets can be clearly marked with the temporary care. That way a volunteer doesn't accidentally post a picture, because they know that they can't. And then also for added security on those ones that are need more of that, you can also consider changing names in the records of both the person and the pet. And that will help. No, by accident can happen because it's the wrong names. So that would be another way to add some more security onto it. But it's just a very different mindset than what we're used to as animal care professionals, taking care of temporary care pets. So things to keep in mind. Okay, I am going to run out of time soon. Let's finish up here. So conclusions and actionable takeaways for domestic violence shelters. Okay, don't be overwhelmed. I've given you a lot of information. Just start small. Do your research with other domestic violence shelters, look at their forms. And also, don't forget that Pets has a free coaching program. So when you have support and you're ready to start doing something, contact them. It's on the Red Rover website. And that way, and the link will be on here too, and they will help you go through giving you documents and resources and people to talk to and help you get up and running. So when you're at the point that your management, everybody's on board with this, connect with them so they can help you out. So here's your to do in the next week, okay? Your action item. So go, use a safe haven for pets directory. The link is on here. Research if there's any domestic violence shelters in your area that have a pet program, because they could be a great source of information and resources, especially resources because they're doing it already. And you can also check the websites of the local shelters and call and ask if you can't find it in the directory that I mentioned. So, but try to find out who's doing this and get friendly with them. They can help you out. And then second thing is have a conversation with upper management or a board, if you're a director, have it with the board about hypothetically taking in pets and what it would look like to them. And also what are the other top 3 concerns, because knowing the objections gives you a starting point of what you need to start really looking at and working on. Typically the objections are going to be funding and safety. So those are your action items for the next week. If you get that done, it's a good way to start, and then you can go forward from there. Okay, now pet shelters, you are not in the clear. You have a thing to do too. So just a reminder, you don't need employees or even a shelter to start a temporary care program or support domestic violence shelters, because both these programs are extensions of procedures and resources that you already have in place. So you can start this much easier than you think you can. Do the same thing, use a safe haven for pets directory, research any domestic violence shelters in your area that allow pets. If not, find out who to talk to at these shelters to start a pet program. If you do find some allowed pets, then look at your resources and find like one action item you can do to help make an impact. For example, maybe providing pet supplies to them, because the more you can start getting involved with these shelters that allow pets, the more it will give you some experience in working with a pet shelter. So something small, just let me supply you with donations that I have, or do this, whatever this one thing is you can do for them. Do that and help them out and get involved in helping domestic violence shelters. It's a good way to start small, basically. And then also research pet shelters with temporary care type programs and make connection with them too, because you can learn from them. And same thing, you can call different shelters around the area. You can check their websites, and you want to start doing some networking, getting friends. Both of you, everybody wants to get networks and friends, because that's how you're going to be the most successful, is with these other people around you that are doing the work already. So, okay, I haven't talked fast enough. I think I got caught up here though, but here's the links. Here's my information, but here's different links. Don't forget the pet resources. All kinds of places you can go to there from the resources they're giving you, and they have a library. So all those documents, remember the documents that Sojourner uses and that we use, are all going to be in their library, and a lot more are in there. Don't forget the pets coaching program. Like I said, when you're ready to start a program as a domestic violence shelter, go to this website and get connected with them. And then the Safe Haven for Pets directory, you put your zip code in, and it tells you which shelters, whether pet shelters or domestic violence shelters, allow pets or help domestic violent pets. So they're all really good links to have down the road. So, okay, I think got 6 minutes left for any questions.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Jodi. What a wonderful presentation with so much incredible information. I see lots of messages coming through the chat of thanks and people mentioning, yes, just how useful this time was. We do have quite a few questions in the chat. I know myself and Jodi are able to stay a little bit after the hour. If you are not able to stay after the hour, we absolutely understand. Today's presentation is recorded, and we will send you a link to the recording and a follow-up email along with Jodi's wonderful slides, because I know there have been questions about those slides as well. But if you are able to stay, we can hang out for a while and make sure that we get as many questions answered as possible. So the first question we have, Jodi, let me scroll down. Let me see here. So sorry, I was on the wrong one, guys. Here we go. We have a pet shelter as part of our agency, and it's a tremendous success. My question to you is, who would we apply for? No, sorry. Who would we apply as far as getting more pet food? I think who would we apply to, or who would we reach out to get more pet food? We are running low on food for dogs and cats. Thank you.
So that's a really common thing right now for pet shelters and domestic violence shelters too. So you're in good company. I'll start with that. What you can do is, I'm not sure if you've ever done any kind of food drives, but food drives tend to be very successful because the community, they want to help out, and donating food is an easy thing to help with. We do that a lot. You know, we have our pet food bank, which goes through a lot of food on top of the pet food that we're feeding our pets in our shelter. And the reason why the pet food drive not only is good is for getting food, but it also lets people know about your program. So it's a really good PR way to do it, because people are very interested in donating food. So before you start trying to go out to form an alliance with a food company, which you could do, I would do food drives with the community, because it's a really good PR way. It's a PR thing to do, and also because you will be successful. People will give you the food you need. Just have an Amazon wish list, and they can go ahead and they could just buy it right on Amazon and have it shipped right to your shelter. It works really well. For those who want to come in, if you give tours of your shelter to get people really engaged, they can drop off a donation. If they can do a tour at the same time or see something that helps engage them more, do that. But we've had a lot of people learn who we are and support us once they hear about our pet food program through the pet food drive to do. So that would be where I would start, because it's beneficial for you and more than just getting pet food, and it will be successful. It's the easiest thing to do is get pet food if you ask for it.
That's great. Thanks, Jodi. Ruthie also mentioned in the chat that they've had a lot of success through donations through Chewy. And I'll also add, I know, Jodi, you mentioned Amazon wish lists. Amazon also has a great program that we used when I was in animal sheltering. I don't know, I'm pretty sure it's still going on. But at that time, we were receiving up to 30 fairly large boxes of pet food and supplies every month. These are just items that couldn't be sent to the person that ordered them, were, getting close to their expiration dates, maybe were damaged in some small way. So that's a great opportunity as well to get your hands on some pet food and supplies.
Yeah, Amazon and Chewy both do that. And so, but you have to be able to get connected with those organizations to be able to get it. The other thing too is make sure that if you have a good place to be able to store a lot, because they're going to come on pallets. And a lot of it comes, the food was open, so it's taped together again. And so it's you will get a lot of stuff, but make sure that you're able to take it in and work with it the right way. But get those are also a great thing to do. There are I would also reach out to the other pet shelters in your area, because they're going to have those kind of foods from already set up with Chewy and with Amazon, for example, and have food they can give out to you. And food that they get donated to them that they're not using in their shelter too. So also reach out to different pet shelters in your area and see if they can provide you with any kind of food, and pet supplies too. Like as a shelter, we get a lot of pet beds, we get a lot of crates. So it's the consumables that are harder to get. I mean, you have to keep on asking for it, like the food. But if you need crates, or you need pet beds, or you need sheets or blankets or whatever, towels, pet shelter's gonna have endless amounts of that for you. So
That's great. Thanks, Jodi. Another question: to prevent abandonment, we plan on encouraging clients to let staff know if they're wanting to rehome their pets. What are your thoughts or tips on that rehoming process? That's a question from Ashley. And yes, that's a great point, Ashley. For our part, we love taking the stigma out of pet rehoming whenever possible. So while our end goal is to keep the pet with their family, if you have a client that comes to, the decision that that's just not going to be possible for them, anything you can do to take that shame out of it, and let them make that rehoming decision in a really loving way, is just a wonderful thing that you can do to ease that pet's transition and to help that client feel a little bit more empowered, and again, just less of those feelings of shame that often come with rehoming. But I'd love to hear from you, Jodi, as well.
yeah, ditto. You're right in line with what we are too. And so what we tell some people is that sometimes it's in both the pet's interest and the pet parent's interest to find a new home for the pet. It doesn't mean that there's any shame around it, but there are just sometimes situations where it is better for the pet and the pet parent both. And so why would you not do what's best for everybody? And so, yeah, there's no shame around it, and just let them know that you're going to find, the best home you can for them. They typically are not going to be involved in the adoption process. They have to kind of just put out faith in you that you're gonna find the right home for the pet. And every situation is different. Maybe a shelter would work with them with the pet parent being part of the adoption, but typically it's not done that way. But just reassure them that they're doing the right thing, and their pet's gonna have a good life. And so yeah, that's all I can add.
Thanks, Jodi.
Mhm.
Question from Dana. Is your recommendation, so I think she's referring to, you mentioned earlier about a pet behaviorist
Mhm.
that you had that could support your shelters that you partner with. Would your recommendation be that the behaviorist also work directly with the pet owner / survivor?
Yes, for sure, because as you know, that pet behavior is really teaching the pet parent. So the behaviorist has to work with the pet parent in order to be able to help the behavior. So yeah, our behaviorist goes to the shelters once a week, and then the pet parent can sign up if they want to have any kind of pet training, and then she will work directly with them and help them teach them, so that their pet can become a better citizen or whatever the situation is. The pet parent has to know how to handle it. So for sure, for sure. They should be together.
Awesome. Question / comment from Jen. Great information here, Jen. We're super excited to hear about this program. But yes, I do see a funding question kind of hidden in there. Our stay-at-home program is similar to Lost Our Homes program. We partner with the DV shelter for our county that does not have pet spaces to provide temporary boarding. Our biggest challenge is funding for this program. We don't charge a boarding fee and usually end up paying the medical expenses for pets in the program. We are the only animal shelter in Maine with this type of program, which also serves clients experiencing medical or housing emergencies and housing insecurities.
Mhm. So you're doing what we're doing too. So and funding is always an issue, but as I mentioned before, is that funding for the temporary care program, that's the easiest program to get funding for. You can look at not just companies that fund pet welfare agencies, but also that also will fund agencies that are helping with homelessness or helping with hospitalization. So it opens you up to all different types of other organizations you can go to for funding. And the way that we see it is that the how to explain this the best way. We're the extension of the homeless shelter, for example. So if a person's gonna go to a homeless shelter, but they can't because the pet is there, we're the first stop, right? So if you want to help somebody who's homeless, also have to help their pets. And that's where the temporary care program or your your temporary fostering program, whatever you call it, there's a homeless program, what comes in place. So you're the first stop for hospitalization, you're the first stop for homelessness, you're the first stop for domestic violence, because those folks are not going to come to you if there's no place for their pet to go. So if you want to serve all of these clients that need your help, you need to be able to also help their pets too. So apply for funding, both for animal welfare agencies and also from human welfare agencies that are helping the same client that you're helping. And that's how we do it. So.
Awesome. And on a similar note, just a note/comment from Eliana, who said, my organization just requested funding to provide DV shelters with animal behavior training. So proud and excited. That's awesome. Eliana, thank you so much for sharing.
That's great. It's going to make a big difference for everybody at Domestic Violence Shelter, having somebody to help with behavior and also answer questions that staff may have too. So.
Absolutely. Question from Sarah with Ruthless Kindness. Sarah, just for anyone who is curious, Sarah and her partner Kate run a wonderful nonprofit vet services organization in California. And they actually also gave a guest presentation for us last year, which is available in our video library on our Don't Forget the Pets website if you would like to see their presentation. But Sarah said, I would love to know how you handle it when you reach the end of your 90 or 120 days of temporary care and the client still isn't in a place to take their pet back. How do you handle that, Jodi?
So that's something we've learned over the years how to work with. And it used to be that the pet would be dropped off and 90 days later, we're like, hey, where you at? What's going on with it? But what we've learned is that if you really need to keep in contact with the pet parent every single week. So our guidelines that they have to keep in contact with us every single week, gives an update of what's happening. So we know that they're still engaged with their pet, for one, and for two, they're working on what their situation is. If we find out the sign that they're really not moving forward, at that point, we're going to try to send them more resources if they haven't sent them already, anything new we have to help the pet parent get through whatever the crisis is. So if they need more help with housing, then we try to find more organizations that can help them with housing, for example. So there's things you want to do around the whole entire process. It's not at the very end of the time. So by keeping in contact with them, keeping the bond strong between the pet and pet parent, and helping the pet parent try to find resources, you're going to have a much less likely of people abandoning their pets or not taking their pets back. The pet bond is really important because sometimes it's the out of sight, out of mind, as Danielle mentioned. So you want to make sure that they don't just think, oh, the pet's better off here, and then they walk away, and the pet's still here, and we're caring for them without finding a home. So make sure you're in contact with them every single week. Really important. When it does come down to the time that they're getting close to their 90 days, we'll do like one 30-day extension for them to go to 120 days. They know at that time that this is it. This is all you have. At the end of 30 days, if you don't pick your pet back up again, the pet will be considered abandoned and will be put up for adoption. So, or maybe transferred to another organization if that's what's best for the pet. So they have to know that there's, this is the day, this is the date, that is 30 days. And so if you are having a hard time finding a place for both you and your pet to go, your plan all along should be, what is the backup plan of where my pet could go? So if I can't take my pet back in 30 days because I'm not a place to do that, who do I have? Who do I know? Or how can I get my pet taken back in another way, whether it be another boarding facility or a friend that can now help out, whatever it happens to be. But start working on your alternate plans for your pet as a backup in case you're not ready yet. So we have those conversations with them. They have the date. They get the one extension. They know that it's important, and they've been with us all along this process. So it's less likely the pet will be abandoned at that point in time. But if they do have to be abandoned, they are put up for adoption. Is what we do. So, and there's, by the way, the forms up front are signed that if they don't communicate with us, the pet will be considered abandoned. There's times like what it means. What does not communication mean? Because sometimes people will bring the pet to us and they don't communicate with us, and we don't want to hold the pet for 90 days if the pet parent has no intention of coming back for the pet. So that's why another reason why the communication is important in defining what abandonment is and what the process is for abandonment. Along this process too, they also get emails and they get phone calls and voice messages reminding them your time is coming up. Make sure you don't forget, get a place for your pet to go. So we're in constant communication with them, especially toward the end, to help prevent the abandonment and help them find a way to get their pet into another place to go.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jodi. I think we're getting close to the end of our questions. I see a handful of comments left. Ashley just mentioned that Hills Science Diet has a great food program for shelters, and that their local animal welfare uses them and has never had any problems. Dana said, thank you so much for the PowerPoint. We have our kennel set up and running since December of 2023. It's been a success. And then she had to hop out of the meeting, but she really looks forward to future webinars. Yeah, just lots of thank yous. Oh, another question from Ashley that just came through. Are there any specific trainings that you would suggest for DV shelter staff who aren't responsible for animal care? I always suggest fear-free training, but would love to hear what you guys think.
Fear-free training is great. It's really great. We do it. We're a fear-free shelter too. We require it for our employees, and our volunteers go through some kind of process with fear-free training too. So yes, that would be great for them to go to. You know, I imagine not much of training, but having them come through a shelter and just getting an idea of what sheltering is like would be really helpful for the employees. You know, if they're not handling pets, because they have an idea of just like that whole talked about the whole respect of other organizations and seeing pets in a different light. So having them have more understanding about a pet shelter and how they can help, or what a pet goes through when it's homeless, I think is really valuable for them. But as far as trainings that are fear-free is what I would recommend. So you're right on there.
Awesome. And then one last note from Christina at Rough Haven. She says, I host a monthly call for crisis sheltering providers. And if you'd like to join, you can email her at christina@roughhaven.org. She also said, Jodi graciously shared her paperwork with us when we started over 4 years ago, and we have been very successful. Thanks, Christina.
Yeah, and her 1 hour a meeting every single month is really helpful. People really have a chance to talk in the nitty-gritty and ask questions about things. And everybody's so helpful to giving answers and giving resources. It's very great. I don't get on all of them, but I always see all the notes and all the things that come through, and I think they're wonderful. So that's a great, thank you for bringing that up, because you really should probably jump on there to learn some things. In the meantime, you don't have a prep program still, you know, or a foster program, jump on there and start doing that too. One last note, the Hills Shelter Program, we do have that at our shelter for our pets that we care for that are our pets. It is a really great program. And not only, they're big discounts, so you're not getting it for free, but they are deep discounts. So if for some reason you're not successful with asking for food and getting it for free, that's always can be a backup for you too. So thank you for bringing that up.
Awesome. And then just final question from Anita, who added, this was a great presentation, and says, thank you. Will this information be available to review after the meeting is over? Yes, Anita, absolutely. I see I've got your first and last name there. So you and everyone else who registered today or gave me their information, you will be marked as attended, and you will receive a follow-up email within the next couple of days with a link to both the recording of today's presentation as well as the slide deck that Jodi provided. And I know many of you are interested in sample documents, sample forms, sample protocols, sample intake paperwork. I hear you. I love that stuff too. Let's not reinvent the wheel when we don't have to. It's great to have a jumping off point. So Jodi has also shared a lot of those great resources with me, and those will be added to our Don't Forget the Pets document library very, very soon. So if you just go to don'tforgetthepets.org, click resources, and you will see our document library, all of Jodi's wonderful documents, as well as documents from other shelters around the country, will be there for you to peruse. All right, everyone. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our questions. Just a huge thank you again, Jodi, for joining us today and providing us with all this wonderful information and insight. I know so many people found it helpful, as did I. So we're just so grateful to have had you with us today.
Thank you. I'm like the opportunity. I love these programs. I feel very strongly about them. And, you know, to me, the more people that can be a part of these and building the programs up, the better it is for our whole country. So yeah, hopefully people found it very helpful and they're ready to go out and do a program too, or do more things to their program they have that's existing already. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. Thank you to everybody who was able to join us today. It was a pleasure spending this time with you, and we hope to see you soon. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.